We are going to make this gauge swatch for the Twisted Lady dress, and once you have made this gauge swatch, you'll basically know what you need to know to get the dress made. We're also going to add tassels to the bottom of this the same way we would add them to the bottom of the dress. So that will be the last little bit that you need to know in order to succeed here. All right, so let's get going with that gauge swatch. We've started off with a chain of 53, and now we're going to double chain 2 into the second chain from the hook. I like to work in the bottom bumps of my chains. You work into whatever part makes you happy. So we start with this second chain from the hook. So I'm skipping the first one. I'm going to go into the second one and make a double chain 2. So to do that, we just basically make a single crochet to begin with, right? And then we insert our hook into the farther of these 2 little vertical stitches here. That one's the farthest from my dominant hand. And yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both, and there is my double chain 2. Now I'm going to double crochet into each of the next 2 chains. So double crochet in each of the next 2. 1 and 2. Chain 1, skip 1, and then we're going to repeat that double crochet in each of the next 2, chain 1, skip 1. So we're going to chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into each of the next 2. And then chain 1 again, skip 1, double crochet into each of the next 2. Now we are going to chain 6, skip 6, and repeat all of this other than that starting double chain 2. So chain 6, skip 6, 2, 4, 6, double crochet into each of the next 2, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into each of the next 2, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet into each of the next 2, and then we're going to do that whole bit from the chain 6, skip 6 all the way to here 2 more times, and there'll be 1 stitch left at the end of that. Okay, now I have 1 stitch left, and I'm going to put a half double crochet into that very last chain here. And that is the end of row 1 of my swatch, which is a wrong side row. For row 2, we're going to turn and double chain 2 into our first stitch. So I turned, we're going to do a double chain 2 in the first stitch, insert the hook, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both of them. There are those 2 little vertical stitches. I'm inserting my hook into the farthest away stitch, little vertical stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both. That is my double chain 2. Now I have to make a left leaning cable, and you can see the instructions for the left leaning cable in the special stitches section. First thing we do is skip 2 stitches. So we're skipping these 2 double crochet. We're then going to front post treble around the next 2 stitches. So a front post treble, a treble starts with yarning over twice. And then we skip these 2. We're doing a front post, which means we're pulling the post towards the front. All right, and making our treble. There is 1, yarn over twice again, go into the next, around the next stitch, we're pulling that post towards the front, doing the second front post treble. Now we chain 1, this is still part of the left leaning cable, and we are going to front post treble around the 2 skipped stitches in front of the previous 2 stitches. So we skipped these 2 stitches, we're going to put front post trebles around them, working in front of these 2 stitches. So we yarn over twice, and we go back to the first stitch we skipped, pull it towards the front, and make that front post treble, yarn over twice, go to the second stitch we skipped, pull it towards the front, finish off that front post treble. All right, and that is the end of the left leaning cable. So now back to row 2. After the left leaning cable, we chain 1 and we front post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. So there's 2 more of these double crochet right here. We're going to front post double crochet around each of those. Okay, pulling that post towards the front. Now we chain 6 and we skip the next 6 chains and repeat this whole part from the left leaning cable on the next 6 stitches. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, skip all of this area, and a left leaning cable. So we start with the treble crochet in stitches 3 and 4. So front post treble in the 3rd stitch, front post treble around the 4th stitch, chain 1, and then working in front of those 2 stitches we just made, we're going to front post treble around the 1st double crochet and front post treble around the 2nd double crochet. Chain 1 again and front post double around both of these last 2 stitches of this little section here. Okay. Repeat all of that 2 more times and there'll be 1 stitch left. There's that 1 stitch left, and we are going to put a half double crochet into that very last stitch. Okay, that is row 2, and rows 2 through 5 are our repeat rows. So there was row 2. Now we're going to turn our work and double chain 2 into the first stitch. And this is now a wrong side row. And now we back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. So we're pulling that post towards the back. Back post double crochet around these next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Chain 1, back post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. And you see that here's the next 2 from the bottom, here's the next 2 from the top. You're doing the next 2 at the top of the previous row, okay? So if you do them, if you follow by where they come off the bottom, you'll be switching things around. So make sure you're looking at the top of the stitches of the previous row, and you're going to back post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, back post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches, pulling that post towards the back of our work. Then we chain 6, and then we repeat everything after that double chain 2 3 more times. So back post double crochet around the next stitch, back post double crochet around the next one, chain 1, back post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches, chain 1, back post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches, chain 6, okay, repeat that 2 more times, there'll be 1 stitch left. Okay, I have finished my repeats, there is 1 stitch left, and I'm going to go ahead and make a half double crochet in that last stitch. That is the end of row 3. Now we are going to turn, double chain 2 in the first stitch, This is row 4, which is another right side row. Now we front post double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So pulling those stitches to the front, front post double crochet 1, front post double crochet 2, then chain 1. Now we're going to make a right leaning cable. So to do that, we are going to look again at our stitch instructions. And for a right leaning cable, we skip 2 stitches, front post treble around the next 2 stitches, and then chain 1. So it starts off the same as before. So skip 2 stitches, front post treble around each of the next 2. Remember, we're pulling those stitches towards the front because it is a front post treble. Chain 1. And now we're going to front post treble around the 2 stitches we skipped, only this time we're working behind these stitches. Okay, so this is where things get a little finagly. So we're yarning over twice, and now instead of going this way, what we need to do is kind of pull these 2 stitches to the front, okay, so we can get in behind them. So we're working kind of in this little hole here. Okay, we're going to take that little hole and just fold those stitches down so we can work through that hole to grab these 2 stitches. So we're grabbing the first of the stitches that we skipped, pulling them towards the front and making our front post treble crochet. Yarn over twice, grab the second stitch we skipped. See, and I'm still behind these 2 stitches. Okay, pull it towards the front and making the next treble. And then you can kind of pull that up and you can see that it is leaning in the opposite direction, and you've made yourself kind of a little braid here. Okay, the first one leaned towards the left, that's why it was called a left leaning, and the second one leaned towards the right. Now we are going to chain 6, and we're repeating everything after the double chain 2 3 more times. Okay, so front post double crochet around each of the first 2 stitches. Chain 1, and now a right leaning cable. So we skip 2, we put a front post treble around each of the next 2. We chain 1, and then we work behind those 2 stitches we just made and do a front post treble into each of the 2 stitches we skipped. So we yarn over twice, and we have now folded this work down, so we're kind of in that little hole from our skip. We're going to front post treble around the first stitch that we skipped, and then yarn over twice, front post treble around the second stitch that we skipped. Flip this all back up again, take a look, make sure everything looks okay. It does. So we now chain 6. Repeat that 2 more times. Here we go. We have repeated all of that across. And now we are going to do our half double crochet in the very last stitch. That is the end of row 4. Row 5 is actually a repeat of row 3. We're going to do that so that we can then take a nice little look at this. So we make our double chain 2, and then we back post double around the next 2 stitches. Okay. Here we go. Sometimes this is a little hard to figure out which stitch is which. You kind of need to straighten them out and look across the top to see the next stitches. Okay, so there's back post around those 2, chain 1, back post around the next 2, chain 1, back post around the next 2, chain 6, keep on going the same way so you can see, you know, they kind of like it can be really kind of smushed together here, and if you just go, you might grab the wrong stitch. So that's why you might want to maybe straighten things out here across the top to make sure you're grabbing this stitch, because it's really easy to accidentally grab this one if you haven't really straightened the top out, okay? So back post around these next two. Chain one, back post around the next two. Chain one, back post double around the next two. Okay, chain six, keep on going until there's that one stitch left. Okay, one stitch left, and we are going to put a half double crochet into the top of the last stitch. That is the end of row 5, and like I said, rows 2 through 5 are our repeat rows. So here you can see that I've made the entire little braid section once. Okay, so here I have the beginning of 4 different braids. And in this pattern, I refer to each of these little sets as a braid, okay? So each of these little cabled sets is one braid. To make the swatch, you keep on repeating rows 2 through 5 until you have a total of 15 rows. So you'll actually end with a repeat of row 3 to get those 15 rows. And then you can finish it off and give it a block. You want to block it to 11.5 inches across, so from side to side, 6 inches tall. And you can see this blocked out into that size without like a whole lot of stretching or anything. It's not, I didn't have to pull it really tight this way or really tight that way. It just, the reason you block it is you can see it likes to curl a little bit in this direction, and it also likes to kind of get a little bumpy right at the seams between the braids and the sets of chains. So you give it a little block, it just lays nicer. I just turned mine upside down and gave it a quick steam. Okay, that's really all that's necessary. You don't need to like wet block this or anything. You can just give it a quick little steam. The shaping for this pattern is almost entirely done by changing the amount of chains in between each braid. More chains make your piece bigger around, less chains make it smaller around. When we get to the underarm, we do add in another braid or 2 on each side, depending on which size it is. But that's the only place where we add in a braid. Other than that, we're just adjusting the length of the chain stitches in between. All right, and what's really nice about this is each one of these chain stitches, right now you see we have sets of 6. Each of these sets of 6 is 1.5 inches long, which means each individual chain is 1/4 inch, and that makes life really easy when you are trying to adjust sizes. There's lots of information in the pattern at the end in the customization section that will really help you if you need to adjust the sizes beyond what is in what's already in the pattern, or if you need one size for your chest measurement and a different size for your waist. It's all really easy. If you want to adjust the flare of the skirt, it's so easy because it all just has to do with how many chains you've got going.